I went from broke, and I mean like 81 cents to my name, and over $140,000 in debt, to making over $51,377 a month. No hype, no shortcuts, and no sketchy business models. Just a simple, repeatable strategy that anyone can use if they're willing to commit. So if you want to see how I went from broke to over $50,000 a month, then let's dive in. And again, when I say broke, I mean broke. Literally 81 cents in my bank account. I remember going to the bank because they tried to overdraft me, and I was crying at the bank, and I'm just like, please, please don't overdraft my account. Like, I literally don't even have any money. I feel like that is criminal, by the way, when they try to take money from people that obviously don't have any money. Like, that just blows my mind. I feel like that should be illegal. But anyways, also at the time, not only was I flat broke, I had just dropped out of college. I couldn't afford to continue with college, and I couldn't get a cosigner for college. So I ended up dropping out, and also I wanted to pursue my business. I was living with my grandma at the time. So very thankful for that, because rent-free, of course, but it obviously was not a picnic. Like, it kind of sucked, you know. I'm thankful for the time I had with my grandma, but it was like, you know, rural Wisconsin, little tiny bedroom, like no frills, okay? Like an old farmhouse, basically. And also very thankful to have been given a car for my great grandmother, but we're talking 1987 Chrysler New Yorker, where when you'd hit a bump, the bumper would literally fall off. So like, very thankful to my family members who supported me, but also, you know, we're not talking like, oh, my daddy bought me a G-Wagon, okay? Just to be clear. So how did I stop being broke and pay off over $140,000 in debt and then eventually get to 50K months? Well, the first thing I did was thought about, what skill do I have? And for me at the time, my passion, the thing I was studying in college, and the thing that I was really excited to start a business on was photography. So I decided to start a photography business. I had dabbled a bit doing like family reunions, maybe a senior portrait here and there, but I thought, you know what? This is it. I've dropped out of college. I'm going to go all in my business. Like, this is it. So I got way more serious about that business. I thought, I'm going to book a bunch of weddings, but I didn't have anything. I didn't even have a camera. I had a laptop from the college, but because I dropped out, I had to give that laptop back because that's just how that college worked. It had like a laptop loan program. So what I had to do was I actually started renting things like a camera, a laptop, or borrowing them from a friend. I remember I went to the library and actually rented a camera. So I would rent the camera for the photo shoot and then return it and do that over and over and over again. Now, one of the perks of living in rural Wisconsin was nobody else was really checking out that camera. Obviously, if you live in a bigger city, it could be harder. You might have to wait longer to check things out, or your library might not even have that, right? But what you need to do is not compare what I had that you don't have, but rather look at what resources are available to you, because I didn't get those ideas from somebody else. I just thought in my little noggin, you know, where can I get these resources for no money? So that's exactly what I did. Was I started small. I started taking one shoot after another after another. The first money that I started bringing in, you know, as soon as I had enough, I bought a camera. As soon as I had enough, I bought a laptop. As soon as I had enough, I also moved out of my grandma's house, moved across the state to move in with my then boyfriend, now husband. And this was a little bit of a bigger city, like 60,000 people, whereas where I was living was like 200, probably, like really small, but it was somewhat close to like a decent sized city. Well, anyways, I moved to this other city and I started taking any gigs I could get. Like, we're talking weddings, portraits, but also, I don't think I've shared this on this channel at all, I ran a Renaissance fair photo booth, which doesn't really make sense because they didn't have cameras, but whatever, we're not going to think about it too hard. Basically, this was a building that I had like a boss basically who contracted me to be in this building and take photos of people at this Renaissance fair. So they would go into this photo booth, they would dress up in the Renaissance garb, and then I would take their photos and then they would buy them. So I did not say no to anything. Okay, I said yes to everything because I was like, your girl's got bills to pay. I have debt to pay off. I'm going to say yes to everything. So for me, that was the first step from getting out of broke. Okay, I wasn't fully out of debt yet, not even by any stretch, but I was out of broke. I had my own place with my boyfriend. We had roommates actually, but I wasn't living with my grandma, and things were starting to get better, right? I was starting to dig myself out. So if you're like broke, I really would say the first thing you want to do is just start saying yes to any paid opportunities, and obviously seeking those out. Like, somebody didn't contact me to do the Ren Fair thing. I talked to like a friend of a friend of a friend, right? Or I would go on like Craigslist back in the day, Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups. Like, I was hustling. Now, eventually this story is going to get to where I am today, which, spoiler alert, involves digital products. And if you want to learn my entire process from figuring out which digital product you should sell that will actually be profitable, to launching it for your first sales, to automating it for consistent income, then go ahead and register your seat for my totally free on-demand training. It's the first link in the description below this video. Now, after the saying yes to everything, the Ren Fair days, the family reunion photo shoots, like just saying yes to anything I could, next comes really the evolution of my photo studio. So I moved to that new city and I just decided I'm just going to focus mostly on weddings and portraits. So I stopped doing side gigs like family reunions and Ren Fairs because they didn't pay as well, and I also wanted to kind of niche myself a little bit. And that got to the point where I was making enough money where my friend and I actually decided to go in and split the rent on a studio space. So half the time I used it for my photography business and half the time she used it for her yoga studio. So we actually moved into this giant warehouse building. And since I don't live in Eau Claire, Wisconsin anymore, I'll just let you guys know in case it's interesting. It's called Banbury Place. And it's basically like this huge warehouse. I think it used to be a tire factory that they renovated and turned it into like these little studios. So it was like one of the cheapest places you could rent for a business. So I would meet my wedding clients there. We would leave the whole space open or like put things on wheels so that the person I was renting with, she could move everything out of the way to do her yoga sessions. And I'm pretty sure the rent for this place was like $700, but we split it. So it was very affordable. And so that's really how I got started. And then I started taking more photo shoots. Eventually my wedding clients started asking me about boudoir photography. So I started doing those photo shoots, and those were way more niche. Not a lot of people would do them. I could charge a lot more for them. And so eventually when I niched myself into that, then I was able to go and get my own studio space. So at this point in the story, I am making multiple six figures a year from boudoir photography. I'm in my own studio space, and I actually purchased a house about 4 blocks over so I could ride my bike to work every single day. It was so awesome. And I purchased a house that had a separate entrance so that I could actually then move my studio into my house. So like we lived in the upstairs and the studio was in the downstairs. And the reason I did this was because my rent was like, I don't know, $700, but it's like plus trash, plus utilities, plus internet, plus all these things that I was already paying at my house. So I thought, let's just combine the two and I'll save all this money. And this is also when I started dabbling in digital products. So I also wanted to be all in one space where I could work on my digital products side of the business and work on the photography side of the business all in one space, and of course, save money. Now, the reason I started dabbling in digital products is because as I was growing my photo business, even though I wasn't broke anymore and I was almost out of debt, and I purchased a house on my own, which was so cool, and I bought myself the first generation brand new Kia Soul, which I thought was like the coolest flex ever, the little hamster mobile. Even though I had all that going for me, I was starting to get burnt out, and I was starting to look to the future and going, okay, I'm already doing like 5 to 10 photo shoots a week. I physically and mentally don't have more in me to give. So I knew that that was my income ceiling, but I still wanted to make more. Like, I never want to become a billionaire or anything crazy like that, but I am an ambitious person who wants to be able to grow a business more and reach more people, help more people, and just really move up that, business ladder, whatever it was that I created for myself. So this is when I discovered digital products. A friend of mine told me about them. And what's funny is I had just added on coaching and in-person workshops because a lot of photographers saw the success of my studio and they were asking me how I did it. So I started doing that. But then I quickly realized this doesn't solve any of my problems. I'm already super busy. I've already hit an income ceiling. I don't have any more time to give. And I did also dabble in trying to build this team and maybe I want a franchise. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I took the information that I had in the workshops and the coaching, the information I already had in my head, and I put it into digital products. And this was the turning point for me because the very first year when I first started getting into digital products, it was only maybe 3 or 4 months left in the year when I got started, but I still made $50,000 grand. And I should say, before then, I did start a blog for photographers. Now, I don't recommend blogging today. I recommend YouTube. That's why I'm on YouTube and I'm not blogging. Okay. This was like back in 2014. But I had started a blog. I had started an email list. I started growing those things. And that's important for you to note. I didn't just make 50 grand out of thin air, right? Like, you have to have an audience that you can sell to and help further and get them in with helpful free content, which is what I'm sharing now. So that's exactly what I did. And then the first full year, I made $250,000 revenue just from my digital products. Then it was $500K. And then we doubled every year until I hit $2 million a year. And again, this was not me selling people digital products on how to sell their own digital products. No, this was me taking the knowledge I had about photography, packaging it into digital products and growing a successful business. And then very long story short, after 16 years in the photo industry, I pivoted to what I do now, which is helping everyday people to create and sell their own digital products with YouTube. Now, somewhere in the timeline when I was doing photography and digital products, that is when I was able to pay off the remainder of my debt and my husband's debt. And we had, over $140,000 combined with like student loans, medical debt, credit card debt, all that kind of crazy stuff. And really, again, I was making great money with photography, but the digital products helped a lot because it's just a way higher profit margin. Like, you don't have to actually pay to have products physically created or shipped or anything like that. And of course, once you create it, you can sell it again and again and again without trading more of your time for money. And again, if you want my full free on-demand workshop that takes you through this whole process from figuring out which digital product you should sell that will actually be profitable, to launching it for your first sales, to then automating your sales for consistent income, go ahead, register your free seat for this on-demand training. It's the first link in the description below this video. So let me kind of go over the steps of how I went from literally broke to over 50 grand a month from my digital product sales. So the first thing I did was I went all in on a service-based business. Then what I did was I grew it from there, and other people started to see the success. And so they asked me if they could learn from me. So I started doing coaching and workshops, but quickly realized that was just trading more of my time for money. So that is when I took that knowledge and packaged it into digital products. And that's when I was able to grow a $2 million per year revenue business. Whereas my photography business, although great, super fun, right? And most photographers probably are like, I don't even need or want $2 million a year, right? And that's totally fine. Like, they love the art of photography, and that's great. I've always loved the business side more than the photography side. So that's just me, and that's why my story is what it is, right? But that is exactly how I did it. So I started out with a service business. People started asking me how I did it. I started teaching with digital products. And then I eventually pivoted to what I do today, and we're making around $50,000 per month. Now let's put this into a framework that you can actually implement, right? Because I totally get it. You probably don't want a service-based business. Now, if you do, I do think it's a really great business to get started with. It's very easy to get started with. You're literally physically going and helping people with stuff. Like, you could, be a painter, you could be a photographer, you could be a graphic designer, you could be a funnel builder. Like, there's so many services that you could offer. And I do think it's a great business to get started with because, again, it is like one of the easier ones to actually sell people on purchasing your services. However, again, you're going to hit that income ceiling. It is a lot of trading time for money. So I'm not saying you have to start with a service-based business. Okay. I have plenty of students that just start selling digital products. What you do need to do, though, is think about, what knowledge do you have that you can share that will help other people, right? Maybe it is helping people to bake sourdough bread, or maybe it's helping busy entrepreneurs find hobbies and find better balance in their life. Maybe you own a horseback riding center and you want to teach people how to be better at horseback riding. Like, I literally took lessons from this lady who had her own digital products, an app that did just that. That's the thing, is the limit does not exist. You can do whatever you want. Just ask yourself, like, what have you done that's helped yourself or helped other people? And what problems are out there that are painful that you could solve for people? Because the more painful problem you could solve, the more money you're going to get paid. So again, my journey was really kind of windy and long to get here. Yours doesn't have to be that way. Look at where you're at in your journey. And if you want to sell digital products to have more time freedom, more financial freedom, then figure out how you can start doing that now. And I really do think the best way to get started is to watch that free workshop I've mentioned a couple times. videos. It is linked below. And I think that's the best place to get started because it's going to give you actual steps and how to do them to start actually implementing this, because YouTube University is great. Listen, I watch YouTube like for probably 2 hours at least every single day. I love YouTube. But at some point you have to get out of YouTube University and start actually implementing and taking action. So if you're starting from zero or you're broke or you feel stuck, just know that I have been there. I know what it's like. Heck, I dropped out of college during the 2008 housing crisis and went and started my own business, which it's kind of good that I was kind of naive about the news and things like that. Then otherwise I probably would have been like,
well, I can't start it now. This is such a bad economy. But
that's the thing is don't wait for the perfect economy or the perfect opportunity or the perfect time or the perfect XYZ, right? The thing is, none of that actually matters in the grand scheme of things. What does matter is that you actually get started and you start taking action and you actually do shit, right? And remember, you don't need a special degree or a special certification. You don't need some big, massive audience. In fact, even if you're at zero or if you have over 50,000 subscribers or whatever you have, this will still be helpful. You can still get started. Everyone at some point starts with no following. And the only difference between someone with no following and someone with a following is that they decided to start. So now that you know how I went from flat broke to over 50K a month, you might be wanting to learn, in addition to digital products, how to get started growing your following on YouTube, because you're going to need people to sell to, right? But how do you do that? Well, it all starts with watching this YouTube challenge here, because when you pair what you just learned with what's in this YouTube challenge, totally free. It's not a challenge we sell you. It's a free YouTube challenge in a video. It's going to be way more powerful. See you in the next video.